Welcome back to Giants Latest. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for all things New York Giants. Today we are talking about the quarterbacks because the Giants have brought in three quarterbacks for top 30 visits this week, and they also have done private workouts with a few of them. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The three quarterbacks that they brought in this week are Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shough, and Shadeur Sanders. So let's talk a little bit about Jalen Milroe because I feel like we haven't really talked about him that much on this show. So let's get into it. He is from Alabama. So one thing I want everyone to keep in mind is that Brian Daboll also has a history with Alabama. He obviously used to coach there. Him and Nick Saban are very close. Nick Saban talked last year about how much he loved Tyler Nubin, and then the Giants end up drafting him. So keep that in mind. I think that the fact that the Giants and Daboll and a few other things, like based on Milroe's capabilities and talent and things like that, I think that he is a great fit for Daboll, and it would not surprise me one bit if the Giants draft Jalen Milroe. So he is 6'2", 217 pounds. He is 22 years old, and his draft projection is to go between rounds 2 and 3. I think that's fair based on what I saw from him at the Senior Bowl. I am a South Carolina fan, so I watched a lot of SEC games. We were this close to beating Alabama. And Jalen Milroe just came out and they had a really great ending and they were able to pull out the win. So Jalen Milroe does have some great qualities and great skill sets. He's definitely, a bit raw when it comes to the passing and the accuracy and things like that. So let's start with the accuracy because I think this is probably the biggest concern when it comes to Milroe. And I saw this while watching Alabama games. I saw this at the Senior Bowl. I saw it at the Combine. He is wildly inaccurate and it's either too high or too low. The Senior Bowl, I mean, a lot of the passes were well over the receivers' heads. I also saw this at the Combine and I was just like, dude, this is like when you have your own wide receivers there, at your pro days and stuff, like you got to nail those. Those are the times when it should be good. And I know that the Senior Bowl is different because you've got different wide receivers there, but the Senior Bowl is the best of the best. Like that is an opportunity for you to really shine. And I just feel like he didn't do that. So that was disappointing to me. So the accuracy is something that needs to be worked on. And the one thing that I want to point out with that, like when I say that I think that Milroe and Daboll are a good fit together, accuracy was an issue for Josh Allen. And, he has talked about that there were a lot of things that he did to improve that. But we know that Daboll was also part of that. And I think that if you're going to bring in someone like Jalen Milroe, who's young, who's going to have time to develop, I have a little bit of faith that Daboll is going to be able to help fix some of the accuracy issues. Now, I don't think he's going to make him perfect. No one is perfect. And I think that, of course, there's always going to be some sort of issue. But I do think that he's going to be able to help him with the accuracy in the sense that he's going to be able to get the ball more so in the chest instead of well up here or down by their feet. So that is my hope. Time will tell if the Giants draft him. Something else is that when he makes throws, especially on the run, his feet are not aligned with his body. And this is also something that Josh Allen talked about, is that he focused a lot on hip mobility and that drastically improved his accuracy. So he was focusing on his torso, his shoulders down to his hips, moving together at the same time. I watched some whole TikTok about it. I thought it was very interesting. And I just feel like knowing that and knowing what we know about Daboll, that's something that maybe could be improved. And, the footwork is something that we saw that was an issue with Daniel Jones and things like that. But I do feel like because he's a bit younger, he is still moldable. And I think that's a reason too why Daboll probably would like him if they end up drafting him. Two things that I think are really important about Jalen Milroe. Number one, he's extremely smart. He was rated in all, oh my God, now I forget what it's called, but he an all academic athlete last year. And it has been a common theme that after he has his meetings, whether it was the Combine or these top 30 visits, that the NFL executives who have met with him have said he is unbelievably smart. He is able to catch on to everything that we are talking about. He's really well spoken. He's a great leader, which I have seen this in some of his post-game press conferences, and I also love that about him. And he's got a great work ethic. And we know that the front office has talked a lot about this when they talked about Daniel Jones. He wasn't the best quarterback. We all know that, but he was the first one in and the last one out. And when you're talking about someone, especially like Jalen Milroe, who's going to have a lot of work to do to improve to be a good quarterback in the NFL, you want someone who's not going to give up and someone who's smart and going to be able to learn Dable's playbook, who we have heard is very challenging. So there are a lot of pluses and a lot of positives to Jalen Milroe. Obviously, I know there's a lot of concerns there, but I think if you get him in round 2, if you get him in round 3, you know he's going to be a project. You know it's going to take time to develop. Something else that two other things that he is also very good at: very good arm strength and extremely fast. We know that he's able to scramble, he can run. He had in his career with Alabama, 33 rushing touchdowns, 20 of them were in 2024. So this guy's a freak. I would love if the Giants brought him in, like when they're in the red zone, put Jalen Milroe back there. Let's see what this kid could do. Like, this is the fun stuff that I want to see the Giants do, especially if they draft someone like him. Another stat I wanted to point out is that he had 16 passing touchdowns last year, which is not a lot, but he had 20 rushing. So you're talking about 36 touchdowns. And during those 16 passing touchdowns, he was averaging 37 yards per passing touchdown. That is insane. That is insane. Do you know how long that is? 37 yards? So I know the accuracy is a concern, but when you have 16 passing touchdowns that are averaging 37 yards, pretty impressive. I like the sounds of that. Something too that he was also affected by, obviously the accuracy is an issue, but we've seen this with the Giants that even when Daniel Jones has made some good throws, the receivers ruin it and they drop the ball. And Jalen Milroe is the quarterback in the 2025 draft that was the most affected out of any other quarterback by the wide receivers having dropped. So something to keep in mind. We know the accuracy is an issue, but also he did have issues contributing to that. When he was accurate, the receivers are still dropping balls. So I like Jalen Milroe. I think he has a lot of upside. Obviously, there's concerns there, no doubt, but he's not going to play at all this year, which I feel like if they get him in round 2 or 3, good value there. Let's see what he can do maybe in 2026. Now, let's talk about Tyler Shough. I believe we've talked about him a bit here, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but I just want to briefly talk about him because he came in with the Giants and he did a private workout with them. So he is 6'5". He's actually the tallest quarterback in this class, 219 pounds. He's also the oldest at 26 years old. His draft projection is about the same as Jalen Milroe, rounds 2 to 3. So he actually played in Oregon first, and then he transferred to Texas Tech. When he was in Oregon, he was the backup to Justin Herbert. So that is just a reminder of how long this guy has been in college. But he dealt with a lot of injuries, so he's able to redshirt and things like that. He had a collarbone issue and a couple other injuries, which is why, at 26, he's just entering the NFL draft. But he is a good passer. He's pretty accurate, and he is confident when he's protected. So I think some of the issues that we're going to see with him is that when he's not protected, can he still be accurate? Can he scramble? Can he get out of the pocket? And can he still make plays? And these are the things that are the reason why this guy is ranked as a second to third round prospect versus, being a first rounder. And when we talk about a first rounder, we have to talk about Shadeur Sanders because we haven't really talked a lot about him here at all. And the Giants brought him in for a top 30. The Giants have met with him and Abdul Carter a hell of a lot. But he recently came in for a private workout this week. And according to Art Stapleton, this workout was actually planned. So this was not some surprise, we're getting down to the wire, it's close to the draft, and the Giants wanted to meet with him one more time. This was a planned visit, so keep that in mind. I know there was a lot of like, oh, the Giants are bringing him in one more time, they're sold on Sanders, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they are just yet, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow when we talk about Joe Schoen's press conference and we recap the things that he said because, of course, he gets into the quarterback talk. So, Shadeur Sanders is 6'1.5", 212 pounds, 23 years old, and obviously a first-round draft projection. We all know he's Deion Sanders' son. Deion Sanders was his coach. His brother Shiloh also played at Colorado with him and is also coming out in this draft, and he is a defensive player. So, Sanders was a 4-star recruit out of high school. He played at Jackson State before he transferred over to Colorado. He is great in the pocket and he's accurate when he's protected. He is, I don't want to say old school, but I'm going to call it old school for this scenario. He is what you would call an old school pocket passer, what Eli Manning was. Not the most athletic, not a great runner, not going to scramble and make great throws on the run. He's capable of doing that. I've seen him make some great throws while he's been on the move. That is not his strong suit, though. His strong suit is standing tall in the pocket and making good throws and being accurate. Now, we have concerns about the offensive line, so that is obviously a concern for Giants fans specifically when it comes to someone like Shadeur Sanders. He's good about keeping his eyes downfield as the pocket collapses, something that Daniel Jones struggled with. So keep that in mind. These are some of the good things that are going to come out of the Giants potentially drafting Shadeur Sanders. Like I said, he's not the most athletic, so his best move is when he's in the pocket. But he also takes sacks he should not take. Like, he needs to be better about throwing the ball away. And again, these are some things that I'm not 100% sure that Daboll is going to be able to fix, but I do think that Daboll is going to be able to help him improve upon that. So we hope, obviously a lot of that is going to depend on the offensive line, but this was a big complaint that a lot of us had with Daniel Jones taking sacks you're not supposed to take. And I just hope that that is something that Shadeur Sanders is going to be able to work on if he is drafted to the Giants. One thing that I saw is that some of the completions that he had in college that were accurate throws, great receptions by receivers, would be closer to being drops or interception in the NFL. And I think that's just the nature of the fact that the cornerbacks in the NFL are so much better. And the safeties, like, they're just better at disguising coverage, better hands, things like that, are going to be able to get pass breakups and make interceptions than some of the guys that he went up against in college. So something to keep in mind. The last thing I want to talk about with Shadeur Sanders is this. His offense was run by Pat Shurmur, who us Giants fans are all very familiar with. He was the offensive coordinator and he was calling the plays while Shadeur Sanders was at Colorado. So there's been a lot of talk that, because Pat Shurmur came from the NFL and has so much experience there, that he was running an NFL type offense, which in theory would give Shadeur Sanders a leg up once he gets to the NFL. The question that I have, and I think this is probably a fair question that maybe you guys have as well, is when Pat Shurmur was the Giants offensive coordinator, his offense was very simple and nowhere near what we hear the scope of Brian Daboll's offense is. So similar to what Daboll did in 2022 for Daniel Jones, where he dumbed it down, if you will. So it was an easier to run offense. I think the question and the theory here is that exactly what Pat Shurmur was doing for Shadeur Sanders? If he really gets into an NFL style offense that is run by Brian Daboll, the plays are called by Brian Daboll, it's supposedly this very challenging, the playbook is extensive, it's a really hard offense to learn and run effectively, is that going to be a problem for him? Now, I think that there's always a learning curve, regardless of what the position is that these players play in college to the NFL. There's going to be a transition. There's going to be mistakes. There is no doubt about that. The question is he going to be able to adapt quickly, learn on the fly, and be able to run a Daboll style offense? The biggest concern that I have is when you talk about someone like Shadeur Sanders, who is not wildly athletic, who is not super tall, is he going to be able to run Daboll's offense the way that it should be run, which is a mobile quarterback who's able to do RPOs, who's able to run the ball on the fly, who's able to do a quarterback sneak and things like that? Those are the things that Daboll's offense are focused on, a mobile, athletic quarterback. And now you could say, well, they picked up Russ Wilson and they picked up Jameis Winston, who aren't exactly Lamar Jackson out there, so Shadeur Sanders will be just fine. Sure, he might be, he might not be. We will not know until he's on the Giants and we see it with our own two eyes and he's capable of doing that. But I just think it's a fair question to ask at this point, because I know as Giants fans, we have complained the last few years for Daniel Jones that we don't have a capable, elite quarterback who can fully run and execute Daboll's offense. We haven't been able to see it. We have seen Daboll scale down the offense to be at the level of the quarterback. And my thing with this is just like, if you're bringing in Brian Daboll because he's this offensive genius, as a fan and as a player, isn't that what we all want to see? We want to see Daboll in his element, running this amazing, fun, great to watch, different style offense that we're not seeing from some of these other NFL teams. That's the only reason I still want Daboll on this team, because up until this point, the offense has been an absolute shit show, disaster, embarrassment in the NFL. Out of 32 teams, we are the worst. So if Shadeur Sanders comes in, is he going to be able to do that? I don't know. Time will tell. Stay tuned for more Giants latest. Thanks, guys, for watching.